There's a strange moment happening right now in the sports car world, and most people don't even realize it. On one side, everything is getting quieter, heavier, and more automated. On the other, a few manufacturers are quietly making decisions that feel almost rebellious. Decisions that don't scream for attention, but tell you exactly who they're still building cars for. And the 2027 Nissan Z is one of those decisions. At first glance, you might think this is just another refresh. A couple of tweaks, a new color, maybe a spec shuffle to keep things relevant. But that's not what's happening here. What Nissan has done with the 2027 Z, and especially the Z Nismo, is far more deliberate than it looks. This isn't about reinventing the Z, it's about refining the parts that actually matter to people who drive these cars hard, often, and with intention. Because the Z has never been about chasing trends, it's always been about feel. And that's where the story really begins. The design doesn't change much, and that's not an accident. The shape still carries the DNA of the original Z cars, and Nissan knows better than to mess with something that already resonates emotionally. But underneath that familiar skin, the car has been subtly reworked in ways that only start to make sense when you're pushing speed. Loading the suspension and feeling air resistance become a real force instead of an abstract idea. Aerodynamics are one of those things people love to ignore until they suddenly matter. And on the 2027 Z, they matter more than before. The changes aren't dramatic to the eye, but they're meaningful where it counts. Reduced lift at the front end, less drag overall, and a more stable high-speed character. That translates to confidence. Confidence is the difference between lifting early and staying committed. And if you've ever driven a car hard at speed, you know exactly how valuable that is. But the real story isn't just the air moving over the body, it's how the car reacts once the tires hit imperfections, bumps, transitions, and weight shifts. That's where the suspension changes quietly do a lot of heavy lifting. Increasing damper diameter might sound like a boring engineering note, but it fundamentally changes how the car breathes over the road. Larger dampers allow finer control. They respond faster without needing to be harsher. That means better body control without sacrificing comfort. It's the kind of change that makes the car feel more expensive, more planted, and more predictable when you're right on the edge. And predictability is what builds trust between a driver and a car. Nissan didn't make the Z stiffer just to make it more sporty. They made it smarter. The suspension works with you instead of fighting you. That's the difference between a car that looks aggressive and a car that actually encourages you to drive it harder. Then there are the details that hit you emotionally instead of mechanically. A new color inspired by the brand's past, wheels that echo a different era without copying it outright. These choices aren't nostalgia for nostalgia's sake, they're reminders. Reminders of what the Z has always stood for: attainable performance, personality, and a connection to driving that doesn't require explaining itself. But if the standard Z feels like a careful evolution, the Z Nismo is where Nissan stops being polite. This is the version built for people who... One of the most important changes here isn't visible at all. It's the availability of a manual transmission paired with a reworked engine response. That combination changes the entire personality of the car. A manual doesn't just give you control, it forces the car to communicate more honestly. Throttle mapping matters more, torque delivery matters more. Everything becomes more exposed. And instead of avoiding that challenge, Nissan leaned into it. The throttle response has been sharpened, but not artificially. It's more linear, more predictable, and more connected to your right foot. That matters just as much at partial throttle as it does at full tilt. In fact, that's where great sports cars separate themselves. Anyone can make a car fast at wide-open throttle. The magic is how it behaves everywhere else. Braking is another area where the Z Nismo quietly levels up. Moving to lighter, more sophisticated front brake components isn't about bragging rights, it's about physics. Reducing unspun weight changes how the car rides, how it grips, and how it reacts. Less mass means the suspension can do its job better. It means the tires stay in contact with the road more consistently. It means the car feels calmer, more composed, and eager to change direction. Those improvements don't just show up on track days, they show up every time the road gets imperfect. And then there's steering, one of the most emotional components of any sports car, and one of the easiest to get wrong. By reducing internal friction, Nissan has given the steering a cleaner signal path. You feel more without being overwhelmed. The feedback isn't noisy, it's informative. It tells you what the front tires are doing without forcing you to guess. That's a rare quality now. What's fascinating about the 2027 Z and Z Nismo is that Nissan didn't chase a single headline feature. They didn't drop a wild horsepower number or over-design the interior just to impress at a glance. Instead, they focused on a collection of small, meaningful improvements that add up to a better driving experience. And that's not accidental. This feels like a car designed by people who actually drive, people who understand that most of the joy in a sports car comes from moments that never make it into spec sheets. The way the car settles mid-corner, the way it responds when you trail brake, the way it talks to you when you make a mistake. Those are the moments this Z is built for. There's also something quietly defiant about this approach. In an era where sports cars are becoming rolling computers, the Z doubles down on mechanical honesty. It doesn't try to isolate you from the experience, it invites you into it. It expects something from you as a driver. That restraint is confidence. And confidence is what makes the 2027 Z interesting. This isn't a revolution, it's something better. It's a reminder. A reminder that sports cars don't need to constantly reinvent themselves to stay relevant. Sometimes they just need to listen more closely to the people who love them. For drivers who value connection over spectacle, feel over features, and involvement over automation, this Z sends a clear message. Nissan hasn't forgotten you. And that might be the most important update of all. Because long after horsepower numbers fade and trends shift, the cars that matter are the ones that make you want to drive them again tomorrow. The ones that don't just perform, but communicate. The ones that ask you to participate. The 2027 Nissan Z doesn't try to be the loudest voice in the room. It just speaks clearly to the right people. And if you're one of them, you already understand why that matters.